Hello, everyone. My name is Nate Lott. I am a learning coordinator for School District 20, located in the Kootenays, for anyone that's ever been to Rosslyn Trail, Castlegar, that kind of area. I basically work through my district with teachers in professional development, specifically focusing on applied design skills and technology. So I kind of range from K to 12. I guess that's a broad range, but we could be doing something with like pixel art with kindergarten class, or working with laser cutting with grade 12 physics classes. So a lot of different opportunities there that I get to enjoy with different classes. Specifically, today we're going to be looking at a really cool program that I found about 3 years ago called the Makecode Arcade. Essentially, Makecode Arcade is a arcade game building program which jumps off the success of Scratch. Maybe many of you have worked with Scratch before. Block-based coding programs. But what it does add into that program is the ability to create really quickly prototype games and build out maps and designs very quickly. So students can get into the process of building a game using block-based language. And if they want to proceed into more programming languages, they can move into Python or JavaScript. Those are other options for the students if they want to go ahead. So feel free, we're a small group today, so the chat is open. Feel free to pop your mic off and make a comment. Since we're so small, that's going to be easy. And if you want to turn your video on, that's fine too. But I think if you could toss in the chat if you are a teacher or a TOC or just curious about this program, that'd be awesome, just so I can get kind of a sense of where everyone is coming from in terms of wanting to learn about the program. That would be awesome. So if you could just pop into the chat and throw in there what you do, basically. Cool, awesome. So 4-5 teacher, early childhood educator, cool, 6 through 8. Awesome, so student teacher, so we got like a nice broad range, that's great. So yeah, so this program, and I know we're in here and it said primary, so it was grade 3 through 8, but I do this program with grade 2s and 1s. 1s have a little bit of help from older grades, and I also do it with grade 12s. I use Python or JavaScript with them, but the block-based program is what we're going to look at today. So to give you a really brief overview of what we're going to do today, I am going to walk you through building out a very, very basic, the word is dungeon crawler. If you've ever played Zelda before, like the original Zelda NES, not talking about the new fancy ones in 3D, we're talking taking it back to like 8-bit graphics. We're going to be looking at building that out. So there's kind of two options here. You can just listen and watch me go ahead and build, or if you want to go ahead and build alongside me, that's great too. Probably for that, 2 screens is a good thing. That way you can kind of watch me and then do it on your screen as well. Yeah, well, actually, in the chat there, someone said something about Zelda on Game Boy, and I have a Game Boy. I have a Game Boy right here, so I just thought I'd show everyone that. I couldn't help myself. If anybody else knows what that is or has used that, that brings me back to my childhood. Yeah, vintage for sure. I'm not selling that thing. That thing is classic. Okay, so I'm just going to close up the chat to give myself a little more room here on the side, and I'm just going to jump straight into my screen share here. Okay, so basically we have Makecode Arcade here. So to get here, just go to good old Google and Makecode Arcade right there. And it's the first one that pops up on your search here. I'm going to click into that. And this will take me to my arcade, the basic layout screen right here. So this is full of all kinds of different tutorials, different hardware that you can use with your Makecode Arcade, different building ideas you have here. You can actually build an arcade machine and attach your Makecode Arcade into that, which is pretty cool. So when you come to your layout screen here, there's kind of a couple different options for entering into Makecode Arcade. And when I do this for the first time with a class, you notice you have your sign in option up here. And if I click on that, you can continue with Microsoft or Google. So everyone's district is a little bit different. We are a Microsoft district, but we have Google Suite accounts for our students. So I often log in with Microsoft to get into my specific login. But actually, you don't need a login at all, and I'll show you a little way to get around that for saving the students' games if you do not have Google or Microsoft. So I'm going to click sign in. I'm just going to sign in with Microsoft right here, and then get my info here real quick. Hopefully everything's set up to get me in quickly. And there we go. Okay. So this is my kind of layout screen here. You can see that I have lots and lots. If I click on all my projects, you can see I've got quite a few projects that I've worked through with my students through the years. I've combined this, one of the big ones I combine this with is storytelling. So I often go into classes and work together with the English teacher. And we work on the sequence of building a story through character design, settings, traits, things like that. So that is where my kind of dungeon crawler story comes in, because off of things like Zelda, you can build a pretty engaging story with the students. So once you've kind of logged in to your basic area here, there's a nice big orange new project button right here. I'm going to click on that. And I'm just going to call mine lot. I'm going to call mine lot Zelda. So my last name and then Zelda, which is going to take me into my basic building area here. Now, just to walk you through the editor, if you've never been in kind of one of these editing programs before, the kind of cool thing is on the side here, you can see they have this designed after an old Game Boy. So it's actually exactly like that Game Boy that I showed you looks. It has the controller here, the B button and the A button. So the B button and A button correspond to your space bar on your keyboard and your E button on your keyboard. For all of you that play Minecraft or any other first-person game, W, A, S, and D on your keyboard correspond to your movement keys inside of your Game Boy, where you play your game over here. Down on the bottom, you have some different buttons here. This is obviously your reset button that resets your game. This is your debug button. I usually don't get into that until we get quite a ways farther down the line with the students when they start to run into problems. This debug button will run through your code step by step, which is really cool. Nice thing to have. Volume, and there's some other things here. This one right here pushes your design out into this kind of full screen, and it's a great way for students to kind of play their games in a bigger screen. Down here on the bottom, you have a download button. That's how you download your game. And generally, this download button is used for hardware. So if I click on these three dots right here, and I click on choose hardware, you can see there's actually different types of hardware you can load the games onto. Our district bought 30 of these little ones right here. They are Adafruit Pi gamers, kind of like a Game Boy, except they have lights on them and they have all kinds of ins and outs that you can attach all kinds of cool sensors into. So we have a class set of these that I roam around with, and once the students have built their game out, they then download the game onto the Pi Gamer and play their games kind of on that mini screen right there. So it's a really cool way for them to actually physically see their game on a piece of hardware, which it adds a nice element into the design process. There's lots of them, and like I said, you can build arcade cabinets out with it too, but we stick with the Pi Gamers for our district because that's quite easy to use. Coming over to your kind of editor area here, up on the top, you have your blocks, you have JavaScript, and you also have Python, which is a recent addition. So if you want to program in these higher languages, probably not really advisable in the middle school grades, but you can take students into those more advanced scripting languages here. And the cool thing is once you build your code out, you can switch into Python or JavaScript to see what that code actually looks like once you build it out in blocks. So that's pretty an interesting component. Name down here, GitHub, that's not really something we touch. This is our zoom in, zoom out, and reset and jump forward. Up on the top up here, you have your home button. This is your share button. So this is how you actually share your game out. And what we do is when we build our games, we often have the students share them out, and I put them all inside a Google site, and the students can all play their games and remix their games, which is a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do here is kind of build out a very basic kind of map and a character to show you how easy it is to get started. I also want to say that this program that we're building right here today, I've created 2 slide sets which go through everything I do here and then take the game really, really far in to building all kinds of things like enemies and projectiles and health and stuff like that. So if you're not following along directly with the game here today, that's okay. Everything's on slide sets and you can go check those out. So to get started, this is our shelf, kind of our shelf here with all of our different code blocks. So what I do is I click on sprites, this little top one up here. The one with the little, I always say airplane on the top, so the icons are handy. And this is our kind of our first create block right here. So set my sprite to sprite blank of kind player. Usually when students see this, they're kind of like, oh, that looks a little complicated. But once we talk a little bit about it, it makes a lot more sense. And one of the most important things that you do discuss with your students is that this sprite block right here that you click on is actually a variable. So what it's doing is taking all of this information here and it's putting it inside this block here, kind of like a bucket. Variables is one of the first things that students kind of learn about when they're learning about coding. Over here is the type of sprite. So you can have different types, projectiles, food, enemy, and really you can build out any type of sprite you want. So one of the first things I do, the students have a lot of fun with this, is I click on this gray box, and this is where I start building my character. Now, there's 2 different ways to do this. You can build your character out, well, hand draw it if you're feeling like you can do that. If you have students that aren't feeling as artistically inclined, you can click on gallery, and I'm just going to drag down, and you can see it comes with a huge library of different sprites that they can use. One thing I would suggest is don't get them to choose any of the fancy ones, like these big fancy ones. They're a little bit too large. Stick with the kind of regular characters here. So for my purpose, I'm going to grab, let's see, I'll grab this princess right here. And I'm just going to walk through a couple basic things that the editor can do. So if I click on the paint bucket button up here, I can change sections of sprites. So what I can do is I can kind of go through and give her more of like a Halloween theme, zombie theme, I guess. And you have your eraser button up on the top up here. You can erase sprites with that one, kind of like a regular pixel editor. I always do suggest to students that they outline their character in black. It just makes it a little bit easier to see. That's sort of a pixel art 101 thing. And then, yeah, you can kind of add or take away anything you want from the basic sprites. Or what I often do with students is I say, okay, click on the tab up on the top up here, type in 16x16 pixel art. And if you click on images, it will give you a huge list of images, and students love picking. Some students have like avocados and they put legs on them, or bananas and they walk bananas around. I kind of like this one right here. It's kind of cool. It's got zombies and robots in it. So students can go to regular old Google and pick out some images and redesign those inside of their Makecode arcade, which is a great way for them to have personalized their character. So once they've got their character kind of built out, I don't leave too long for that because, you know, it can take a long time. I also show them this little tool right here. This is called the marquee tool. And the marquee tool, you can actually take chunks. Sorry, I'll redo that. Control Z is your best friend in Makecode. You can take chunks and you can move them around. So that's very handy when we get to animation, and we might get to that today. I'll see how far along we get. So once it's done, one other thing I do point out, on the bottom of the screen down here, you have 2 numbers, 16 and 16. So this is your x-axis, and this is your y-axis. So if you're to bump this up to 32, you can see it extends the size of your character sheet out. You don't want to do that. Students will say, can I make mine bigger and more detailed? I say always start with 16 by 16. You'll also notice when I drag over here, down here, there are coordinates, and we get into a lot of math, little conversations about graphing and math with students when we start to talk about coordinates and pixel art, actually. Okay, that's a nice kind of basic understanding of the editor. So let's click done there. And you'll notice, it'll just take a second to kind of run. My character will pop up in the middle of my screen right here, looking kind of shocked and surprised. So once my character pops up in the middle of the screen right here, we want them moving around. And the students have a lot of fun with this part. It's fairly straightforward. You just click on the controller tab right here, this orange one with a little, I think it's a Super Nintendo controller, I'm pretty sure. And you just grab the very top block out right here. It says move my sprite with buttons plus. So just pull that out, plunk it in there. And yeah, it's taking the variable sprite and it's applying, if you click this plus sign right here, it's applying velocity to the x coordinate, so this way, and it's applying velocity to the y coordinate, which is your up and down. So once I hover over the screen here and I use my WASD keys on my keyboard, I can move my character around. Now here's the part they love is that your character disappears. So they actually go out of the screen and they all get a bit shocked by that. So that's the first thing they tell you, that you need to fix that right away. So we talk about that. But that's kind of the start. Now, if your character has a lot of black around them, like around the edges or in the eyes, you'll notice the black blends in with the background. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that our character isn't blending in too much. So what I like to do is come down to scene right here, where it has the little tree. Let's call it the pine tree. And I can set the background color right here. It's the third one down. So I just pull that out and I click on the gray box. And you notice the cool thing about Makecode Arcade is it auto saves all the time, so you don't have to worry about that. And I just click red, and if you give it a second, it will change your background to the color that you have chosen. So it's a little easier to see your character if they've got a lot of black on them. Okay, so once we've got that, you'll notice the Vx and Vy velocity are adjustable. So if you don't like how quickly something moves or how slowly something moves, you can always adjust it and put in, like if I say 200 for my X and my Y, you'll notice that my character, just give it a second to catch up. My internet's probably a bit slower out here. It will change that velocity to match whatever that speed is on there. So you see my character is now moving at like hyperspeed. But 100 by 100 I find is generally a pretty good basic kind of movement. Now, the interesting thing about these two velocities right here, this game is a Zelda type game, so you're wandering around. If you think about side scroller games, like something like Mario, you actually don't want your character moving on the Y velocity. You don't want them moving up and down. So you actually turn the Y velocity to 0, and that will make sure they can only move in the X direction this way. So there's all these little tricks that students start to learn when they start playing around with, something simple like just a little movement block right here. All right, so once we've got our 3 basic blocks here, we want to start thinking about adding our level in. So the level build out for Makecode is one of the very strong points in why it's becoming such a popular program. So if I click on the pine tree right here, and you can see if I just drag down to tile maps, which is this section right here, you can see the first tile in this set tile map to tile map gray box. And this is probably the most powerful, one of the most powerful pieces of code that you have in your coding arsenal that sits on the side here. So if I click on this gray box, it takes you to what looks exactly like a editor. And it is an editor, but it is a tile map editor. So each one of these squares, you can see I'm just kind of dragging this square around, is 16 by 16 pixels. So it is exactly the same size as your character. So if you can imagine, your character would just be placed on top of those flowers when they're moving around. So over on the side over here, you can see it's a bit more advanced in terms of what it has compared to the regular editor. If we pull our eyes down to the bottom down here, you can see there's some basic templates that you can drag from. So I have this dungeon one right here. I'm going to click on the dungeon one. And I have a whole bunch of, and I click the arrow to the left and right, you can see I have a whole bunch of dungeon artwork that I can play with. I like to kind of start with this one or I start with the forest one because they are easy to use and a great way for students to build out their first level. So I show the students, okay, I'm going to take this gray block and it appears up here, grab my paint bucket, and I'm just going to click and fill my entire level with my dungeon, my tab that has all of the tiles in it. So that's a great way to fill your level with the basic floor. Now, once we've got our basic floor, the first thing students are going to do is be like, I want to make my dungeon bigger. It's not big enough. Now, down here is the same thing is your extension block. So you can make your x-axis way larger, but I'd be very wary of that. When you're starting students out, always start them out within the 16 by 16 because they get really carried away with level design, and the coding becomes a bit difficult when they make their dungeon a bit too big. You can see right here on the bottom, it's got a name, level 1. That's a good one to stay with. Once the students have designed this, I just click done on the bottom, and they just kind of wait for a second here, and it will repopulate your code, and your character is in their dungeon. Now, we still got a problem because our character still walks outside of the dungeon map. That is very easy to remedy. We're going to come over to scene, and there is a second way to find code. You don't have to click on it to get it. You can click up on the search bar on the top, and I'm going to type in camera and hit, well, I don't have to even hit enter. So you can see there's a bunch of different options here, and it found camera, follow, sprite, my sprite. So the search function here is a very handy way for students to find what they want just with the magnifying glass. So I'm going to drag this one out. I'm going to put it at the bottom, and it says camera, follow, sprite, my sprite. So now when I move around, you can see I've got my basic movement for my character. And every one of those blocks is 16 by 16. So that's pretty cool. Students really enjoy that when they can see their characters come to life a little bit. There's no animation or anything like that on them, but it's kind of a good start. We've got our basic layout. Now, one thing that's really important, and I talk about this right away with students because you see this all the time. If you you want to make sure that things are done sequentially. So I'm just going to pull this block out, and I'm going to put it at the top. Okay, and it's important with code that students understand this. You'll notice that the camera does not follow my sprite anymore. And I also often ask the students, why is this so? So the reason for this is the sprite is created here, but this variable has not even been created yet. So the camera doesn't even know what to do. And what students will often do is they'll just grab code and they'll just chuck it in wherever. They have to understand that it is sequential, and it's important where you do place things because it can break the code, or some of your code won't work. So that's an important distinction to make at the very start of building your code out. Now you'll notice when I grab this, it grabs the entire block, which is kind of, that's not really working for us. So what I do is I hold down Control on my keyboard. So I just tap down the Control, and that allows me to pull out one block at a time and allows me to flip it around. And then it just resets every time I do that. So that's really important to discuss the sequential aspect of the code with your students. Okay, so we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got our 5 basic blocks in here ready to go. I think the next thing we want to talk about, if I click on my tile map, is constructing our basic dungeon. So it doesn't look very dungeony right now. So what I'm going to do is I always create a block where my character starts. You have to do that, and we'll talk about that, why that is in a minute. So I go back and I generally choose this little turquoise block right here. And so I click on the turquoise block and I just place it right at the top, and that's where my character is going to start. And from there, I want 2 items in my level. The first item I want is a key, and the second item I want is a door. Students can kind of get lost in developing their level and not really have a goal in mind. I find often a good goal to start with is having a key in a door scenario where they have to find the key to unlock the door. They're like, I want to create a sword that shoots fireballs or a dragon that flies around the screen. That's great, but you want to make sure that they understand some basic things around variables and Booleans and conditionals before that starts. So we've got our start right here, and we're going to place a door down here, and I'm going to place a key over here. So the door and the key are 2 important pieces. So what we'll do is if you click on my tiles right here, and this is kind of another really interesting piece, you can build your own tiles out. So this is where students can get really artistic and creative. So I click the plus sign right here, and you can see I have a blank, kind of a blank screen, and I'm just going to see if I can create a door real quick. Oh, I'm not doing a good job already of the door. Hold on. Drag that out and put a green doorknob on it. and I will make it yellow. It's going to be a pretty horrible looking door, but I'm going to go with it. So there's my basic door. And I'm going to place my door kind of down here. Now, students are going to be, some of them are going to be much better artists than you, and have at it. So once you've got that basic door down there and you've got that ready to go, you want to place the key somewhere. So the key is actually a little bit different. The key is not built in our tile map like this. The key is built as a sprite. Just as you built, I'll click done down here. Just as you built your character as a sprite, we build our key as a sprite. And the reason for that is because we want to be able to carry the key around and carry it around our level. If you build the key as a tile map item, you can't carry it. It's totally different than a sprite. So they're two totally different types of sprites. So I'm gonna click done. I am going to come up to sprites up here, and I'm going to grab set my sprite to sprite blank. It's the same block you used before, except this is going to be our key block. So I'm going to click on here where it says my sprite 2, come down to where it says new variable right here, and you want to name your variable. So this is going to be a key. I'm going to click OK. And over here, you can see there's different types we can call our key. Now, I'm going to call it food, and it will make sense in a bit. You can call it whatever you want, but I find we'll just call our key food because it's a type. So we have a key with a sprite of kind food. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this gray box, and quickly I'm going to draw out a key. So let's see if I can draw a reasonable looking dungeon key fairly quickly here, like that, and give it that like nice key sheen down the side and over the top and around like that, although it will have a second one. Looking good. Okay, so there's the basic key. Now you can leave the background transparent. The reason you want it transparent and you don't want to color in the background is because you're going to be carrying the key around the level. So if you color in the background to be the same color as your tile map, it's going to look a little strange. So I always leave the background as transparent, like those checkered blocks you see there. I'm going to click done. So I have my sprite, I have my key. Now here's the problem with the key, and I've got a problem with my character. The key appears in the middle of my, well, not the middle of my level, but the middle of my screen, and my character appears on the key. So those are two issues that we need to solve. Those are the first two things. So the first thing is we need to figure out, okay, how do I get my character to start on this block right here? So to do that, we come down to the forest icon, or that tree icon right here. And we're going to come down, come down, come down. And under this one called Tile Map Operations, there's one that says place my sprite on top of random checkerboard right here. So I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to put it right here. And the cool thing about this block is it says random. We click on random, and it gives us a list of the blocks that we created in our tile map down here. So I'm going to choose my turquoise block, and you can see right here, it just takes a second. And my character, oh, my character's not appearing on my, this is a good lesson. I broke one of my own rules. And actually, I wonder if anyone can tell me the rule I broke right here. I already broken one of my own rules, and it was a sequential error. What I did is, this is a tile map block. So I hadn't even created the tile map yet. So I create the tile map, and then it uses the tile map block. And this is a common error, and I just made it myself, that students make all the time. They'll take this and they'll put it at the top, and the tile map has not even been created yet. It's created down here. So this block always has to go below the tile map. So that's a little troubleshooting 101 there. So now you can see my character starts on the tile map way over here, and she can wander around. She still is not interacting with the key, but at least we've got her started in the right area. Now, the key, we want to do the same thing with. We want the key to start in a certain part of our level. So we just use exactly the same piece of code right here, except I'm going to click on my tile map. Give it a second to go into my tile map. I'm going to place the key down in this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my gallery, click on my gallery, and I'm going to choose this crystal ball right here. And I'm going to put the crystal ball down around about right there to make it nice and easy. and I'm going to place the key on top of the crystal ball. So I'm going to click done, and I'm just going to come down a little bit this way and a little bit over. And this says place my sprite on top of random turquoise things, and then I'm going to right click it. Now, if your students have Chromebooks, which most of our district does, if they don't want to use a mouse, they can do what's called a snake bite. So that's a two-finger, I call it a snake bite. It's two-finger click on their trackpad, and that will pop up with these right-click options. And one of the right-click options is duplicate. So I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to drag it in right there. I'm just going to come down a little more. I'll back out a little bit of my code so you can see it. I'll back out one more so you can see it better. And I'm going to place my key. So I'm going to click on my sprite. I'm going to go to key on top of random, and I'm going to choose that nice little crystal ball that I had there. So let's make this nice and big. Let's come down, and my key, you can see, is on top of my crystal ball. I still can't pick it up, but that's okay. At least we have our character spawning in the correct area, and we have our key spawning in the correct area. So this little set of code, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. With 8 blocks of code, you've already started on kind of a journey to create a little bit of an interactive component of your game. Now, one of the important pieces of coding and storytelling is the traits of your character, or creating the setting for your level. And one of the most important blocks that we use in a game is this purple circle one right here. This one called game, if you scroll down to the bottom of it, you'll see there's dialogue text down here. So I can drag this long dialogue text right here, and I could say, I don't know, something like, wow, I had better find that key soon. Okay, so you'll notice when I click here, it'll take a second to reload. Wow, I'd better find that key soon. And it waits for you. This is the nice part. You don't have to do any more coding. It waits for you to click the A button, which is your space bar. And then it starts the game. So this little game icon with a circle on it and this text block right here is an awesome way to connect it into storytelling, because you can add a story. And the other teacher that I work with, the other learning coordinator I work with, she specializes in literacy. So we work together and the students design a story and lay a storyboard out before they start to get into the coding component. So they have an idea about what they want their story to look like. And then we go through kind of the technical side of how to build the story out. Bringing their story alive is basically what this is doing. Okay, so we've got our basic code here, and like I said, don't worry if you're not following along, you're not doing it at the same speed as I am. I've got everything on Google Slides for you to give to your students or for you to check out after, so you don't have to worry about that. And everything to build out here is exactly the same. Let's come down here a bit and let's click on our tile map. Now we have our character starts here, we have our door here, and we have our key here. We've got 3 great components. Now let's talk about building our level out. So I'm going to come down, I'm going to push forward a tiny bit, and I'm just going to use these, and I'm not going to do a good job of this because, you know, I'm just going to make this pretty basic. Now, students will get really picky about this and have to match everything up, and it all has to, you can see there's a lot of options here. It all has to be perfect. I'm just like, just build the maze and do your best. Build it how you want it. This area, I say generally, and this is just as a general rule, I leave this area open. And the reason for that is because this is kind of where I create a sword or a projectile or some arrows for the character to grab for when they come to the kind of enemies or the boss or whatever you want to call it on the next screen. So I say leave this area open, but make sure that you kind of block out your room, your key room that you're building. So I just kind of put some blocks around it and build a little tiny room there. My art skills are not the best, so I'm just going to do kind of a quick and dirty job of this. Bring it around the bottom here and down the side, corner. See, I've done that side wrong already. Corner here and corner here and a final corner. There must be another corner for that left corner. Oh, I'm missing it. There it is right there. Okay, so you've got your basic block here. Now I can erase. So I click on this erase button And I am going to, actually, I'm not going to erase. I am going to retile that. So I'm just going to retile that here, here. And I've got my basic room here. And I'm just going to kind of run a couple more tiles out. And the students, you know, they could spend like 20 minutes on designing their level and just making sure it's kind of, you know, laid out the way they want it to. I'm just going to run this way for time's sake and make sure that I don't spend too much time on creating my maze here. I'm just going to kind of push this over this way, push this one down the bottom. I'm going to put a block there, bring this over and up. And yeah, that's basic layout. So there's our basic layout. You know, they're going to design it a little differently than you, but what I would ensure when you do, if you do this for the first time with your students, is you stick with a large room, a key, and a door. Because if they start building it out the way they want it to exactly, when you get to some coding components here, it's going to be a little difficult to troubleshoot. And if you have a class of 30 students, troubleshooting code can be difficult unless you've created kind of a very basic template for them to follow. So once we have this basic layout set up, we want to start talking about, well, let's talk about animation, because at this point we can start to look at how do we animate our character. So I think first, though, I'm going to get the character to pick up the key. So to do that, we're gonna enter into a new block of code that we haven't really talked about yet. And if I click on this little one with the paper airplane up here, and I pull all the way down to about here, there's one called overlaps right here. And overlaps are really cool because they are kind of like a collision event. When something touches something else, something happens. To write that out in like Python or in JavaScript is a little complicated. So these little blocks of code take care of a lot of the heavy work. And you can kind of come over to the side over here and place it over here. These blocks of code don't go inside here. They kind of sit on their own. I will say they're a bit special, so they sit on their own. Now, if you look closely at the wording of the block of code, it says on sprite of kind player. So that's our character called player. Overlaps other sprite of kind player. And this is a common mistake that students will make. They need to change this to the type of sprite they want to overlap. So when my player overlaps my food is basically my key. I want something to happen. And I only need one more block of code here to make the character pick up the key, which makes it really easy. So to do that, I just come back over to my controller, which is the orange one right here. Click on that. And I grab this top block out and just put it in here. And here's the kind of interesting part. All you do is you grab this other sprite one, and you put it inside that block. And when you put it inside that block, it will pick up that other type of sprite. So you'll see that this little piece of code is kind of hanging out here. I call this ghost code. And I say never have any hanging around in your level, always in your editor, sorry. Always trash that, because that can become problematic later on the road, later down the road. So let's jump into our level right here. And I'm just going to click A. I'm going to come down. Come over, and you can see I've got a problem. I can kind of move through the walls, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I can pick up my key, which is kind of cool. So I can pick up my key, and I can hit a wall. My key changes sides. So you've already got some mild, you know, very basic interaction with some of the elements in your level, which is cool. So that is a nice little thing with 2 blocks of code. You can have an interaction with a key. So you'll notice that the problem I had there was I walked through all of the walls. And to change that, we need to create what are called collisions. Your character has collisions around them, so they have like a little box around them. None of this has a box, nothing has a box around it, a collision box. So what you can do is there's a little wall icon, looks like a wall. You click on that, and you make sure you're on your pencil icon right here. You can drag these little see-through kind of, oops, I made a mistake, Control Z, I'll back up. You can drag these little see-through kind of highlighters over anything you do not want them to walk through. So I'm just going to run very quickly around my level here, and I'm just going to kind of block out everything I do not want them to walk through. Now, don't block out your door, don't block out your key, don't block that out, because that'll cause some problems. You'll notice I've got some overlapping. I've made some mistakes here. When you make a mistake like that, you can click on the eraser, and you just click and you can erase any of the wall that you've created by accident. So this looks pretty good. I'm gonna click done. I'm gonna see if it actually works. So I'm gonna click play, hit A, whoops, hit A. And now I'm trying to move left and right. I can't, I am stuck walking through my level normally. Now you'll notice sometimes trying to go up can be a little bit tricky, like going through these small spaces. So sometimes it's better to leave these a bit open, but that's up to you how difficult you want to make your level. You'll notice sometimes too, there's bugs, like your key will take off, but you can always pick it up again and go grab it. It's just what we're dealing with when we're dealing with simplified code like this. Yeah, that looks great. Right on. So once we've got all of this set up and ready to go, we're going to look at some animations. So I'm just going to come over a little bit this way, and I like to move kind of sequentially through my code. So as well, I should show you this really quickly. You can right-click on your code and you can collapse the block. So you can make it really small. And that is going to be important when your code gets really big. You don't want like tons of code everywhere. It just gets really confusing. So you can always right-click and collapse it, or you can right-click in this editor and you can collapse all blocks, and it will collapse all of them. So I'm just going to put that over there for now. OK, so I'm going to come over a bit over here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create an animation for my character. So one of the important things that you introduce to your students is the concept of functions. So in computer science, functions are pieces of code that you can place code into that you can run again and again and again without having to rerun that code. So functions are really handy for things that you might want to use it a couple times or maybe 100 times, it depends. So one of the early on when I'm building games out with students, I introduce the concept of functions because it helps a lot with reiteration of pieces of code. So to do that, if you come down here, you'll notice at the very, very, very bottom, there's a little down arrow called advanced. So you can click on advanced, and I'm going to come down again. And there's all these advanced functions, or sorry, these advanced blocks of code right here. The one I'm talking about is the FX functions block right here. So I click on that, and this little gray box pops up right here. And simple enough, you click on make a function, and you've got some of these parameters up here. You don't need to worry about those. And we're going to call this animation. So this is our animation function. So I hit enter and done. And that pops up this little tiny box right here that says function animation on it. Currently, that has nothing inside of it. So we need to fill that with some code that's going to animate our character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close my advanced tab. And I'm going to come down under the math. And you can see right here, there's a little plus sign. And it has a section of our code called extensions. So I click on that. The community has built out all of these super cool add-ons onto Makecode Arcade. Now, there's so many. This one is really neat. This one allows you to access hardware. So you can actually, like those Pi gamers I was talking about, like if you have like a certain amount of life for your character, you can access the hardware, like the lights on it, and you can change them. So this is a really neat one. Servos, you can run servos on it for a little robotic stuff. You can create status bars, color fading. It goes on and on. But the one I always go to, so maybe some of you know the Makey right there. The one I always go to first is the arcade character animations one, which is this one right here. Once you click on it, it installs the function into your game. So it doesn't look like it changed anything, but actually, if you look way down here, there is a movie camera with the character explanation next to it. And if I click on that, click it once here, it has this small kind of set of specific blocks. So if you were to try to build out an animation using the code, like all the code here, you could do it, but it's quite complicated actually. You have to use velocity and all kinds of, you have to use arrays and all that stuff. So this one is a really neat block of code. Students love this. And if you just grab it and put it inside your block, we'll walk through what this does. So right now, it's using my sprite, which is my sprite that I created right here. And it's going to loop frames. It's going to loop them over a certain amount of time. This is in milliseconds, so half a second. And it's going to do it when my character is not moving. So one of the interesting things about animation that I always talk about with students is there's a number of basic animations that you want to do with your character. The first animation you always do with your character is the idle animation, or the standing still animation. And when we stand still, we're not like frozen, we're breathing, maybe our hair is whipping around. I don't have much hair, so I don't, they always like that joke, but the idle animation is always the first one we do, so not moving. So I click on this little block here, and you'll notice it looks exactly like your editor. The difference is on the side, it has essentially a flip book that you add onto. So you add these different blocks onto, and basically like a flip book, like you're flipping through frames of an animation. Now, currently it has nothing in it. And if I go to gallery, you can see there's my characters. Now, here's the deal with this. If they've created a custom character here, you have to do a little bit of a different process. And I always explain this because most of the students do create custom characters. What you do is you come over to your sprite, the original one that you created here, and you click on them, your my princess right here. And I go over to that marquee tool, which is this one right here, the one that I talked a little bit about before. So you click on that, and I just click up in the corner and I highlight my entire character. Once my entire character is highlighted like this, I just hold down Control C, which is copy. So that's Control C on your keyboard. And I click done. And I come back to my little green animation block here. And I hold down Control V, and that's my paste. So I copy and paste the character into my editor right here. So once I have my character sitting there and just kind of hanging out, I can then duplicate them. So you can see this is my first character, this is my second character, or my second frame of my character, and I'm going to change something. With students, I always start with the eyes because that's the easiest one to start with. So I say, okay, make them blink. So all I do is I get that skin color right here, and I kind of just close the eyes a little bit like that. Actually, I'm going to flip these two around. So there's my first one. There's my second one. You can see it right here. I don't think I did a very good job of that. There we go. And I'm going to duplicate that again, and I'm going to close the eyes fully like that. So you can see first frame, second frame, third frame, and I messed the third frame up. Okay, it looks so weird. I don't think that's a great animation I did there, but I'm going to click play, and you can see it runs through the animation on the side. Now, the animation is running at 500 milliseconds. I'm going to run it at 200 milliseconds, and you can see it runs a little bit faster. So once I've got I always start with the eyes. It's just a great place for students to kind of actually understand when you're framing animations, what they look like. Then I go back into my second animation and I make them breathe. So I click on the marquee tool, I grab like just the body like this, and actually no, sorry, that is a mistake. I grab the head and I just move the head down. You can see, and she moves a little bit. Now, for those students that are feeling intimidated by this, I usually start with 3 animation frames, but they are free to add as many animation frames as they want. You can, make a little bit of a head, kind of a head shake like that. You can see my character is moving her head a little bit, and I'm gonna add one more, and I'll move the head back this way. I'm not really sure if that's not really a good animation, but at least it gives you an idea of what an animation looks like. And you can have the hair move around and all that stuff. So I'm gonna click done, and I'm just going to close this up. Now, the first thing your students will say is, okay, I've done my animation and I'm waiting for it here. Click A, and it's not working. My character is not animating at all. And the reason why your character is not animating is because you have not called the function. The function is just sitting over here by itself. It is not being called anywhere. So that's not going to work. So what we need to do is let's scroll down here and click on advanced again. Sorry, I'm going to click on advanced and open that up all the way down here. Click on functions, and you'll notice under make a function, there's this thing called call animation. So I drag that out, and I always place it just below my character. It's the same process when I talk about sequential. Don't place it above your character because they haven't been created yet. Always place it below where your character was created. So I click this and I click play. You can see I've added a very basic animation into my princess who's in her dungeon. Okay, so once we built that out and the students understand that, and that takes a little while for them to kind of wrap their heads around how this function works. Some of them will do this. They'll like create 2 functions. They don't need to do that. They always should just work with one function for animation. So once they've created their first animation, you can snake bite or two-finger click this, duplicate it, bring it down, and you'll notice they're exactly the same, except I'm going to change this one to moving. So we've got our idle animation with our character just bobbing their head up and down. You can see it actually if you hover over it. I know it's a bit hard to see there. Hold on, I'll zoom in a bit more. If I hover over the animation, it actually shows it running. And this one does too. And I'm going to change it to moving. So this is when my character is moving. Doesn't matter if they're moving up, down, left, right. This animation is going to run when they're moving. You'll notice, and I'll just zoom out a little bit here, that I have like animations moving right, moving down. So you can get as fancy as you want with animations. For students, when they're starting out, I just do not moving and moving to keep things nice and simple. So what I do here is I tell the students, okay, you got all your basic animations, trash them all. Oops, I trashed them with the, that wasn't really right. I just want the one with the eyes open. So let's trash that one, this one, and this one. There we go. Now I want her moving, so I'm going to kind of give her some legs. I don't think she has any legs right now. She's kind of maybe in her dress. So I am going to come back up here, and I'm going to just chop out this bottom section here. I'll erase that. I will give her some small legs. So I'll just add some small feet here and here. And please remember, if you are doing this with your students, if they create like a snail or a slug, whatever they create, tell them to always put legs on it, because when you come to this part of your tutorial, some of them won't have legs on it and they'll be like, I have no idea how to make my animal or whatever it is move. Legs makes it really easy just to practice. So let's click on this one. I've got my legs right here. I've duplicated it. This is my second animation. And I'm actually going to trash that one. There we go, duplicate that out. So I'm going to grab the marquee tool. I'm just going to grab these legs on the bottom. I'm going to bring them up. And then I'm going to duplicate it again. And I'm just going to bring this leg up. So if I click play, you can see she does a very basic walking animation. And of course, you know, really for something like this, I would totally add a head bob into a walking animation like that. That just, you know, that's a nice basic animation. That's only 3 frames, but I think it gets the point across. You could do the arms too if you wanted to, make them move a little bit, but for our purpose, that should work pretty well. Now, you don't need to call that function again. The animation function is running these 2 pieces of code. So let's just make this bigger. Let's click play. And when I walk, it's a bit hard to see, I know, but her legs are moving when I walk my character around the level. And for a lot of students, this is a big wow kind of part for them, because their character is kind of really coming to life now, although their key's getting away. Their character's starting to look like an actual character in a game. So this is a really fun part. I like to watch how students react to their character kind of coming alive with their animation. So I'm just going to kind of bring myself back out here, and I'm just going to move my code over so it's nice and neat. And I'm going to open all my code up. And there we go. I'm just going to bring this function code over here. Okay, so I've got my basic code set out. So once we've got our character, moving around a level, we have our kind of first project, which is key opening the door. That's the thing we need to work on. We need to start talking about, well, how do I actually get a door to open in a game? Like, what is the process of doing that? So the thing I talk students about is we need to start talking about Booleans, something that is true and something that is false. So we need to also talk about what are called conditionals. Conditionals are if-then statements. So you talk a little bit to students about it, but the best way to do it is to actually show them how to make one. And the best way is through a door logic, I guess I would call it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of push my function over here. I'm going to push this over here so I have a little more room. And I'm going to work with building my door logic out right here. It's important for your students to keep their code organized and understand where it is at all times. Sometimes they'll like overlap it or chuck some up here, and you're like searching around for where their error might be. So sequentially is generally the best way to build it. So first thing we need to do is we need to create a Boolean. So what I do with that is I come over to my variables section, which is right here. We haven't used this yet. So I click on variables. And sorry, I'll zoom in a bit. I'm a little far away. So I'll click on variables. And the option here you have is make a variable. You can see you have key variable right here. So I'll make a variable. And I'm going to call this variable door_locked. Okay, like that. And you can see it creates a door locked variable right here. I'll back up just a little bit. And what we want to do is click on variables, and we want to grab the set door locked to 0, and we want to put it at the very top, way up on the top. So we don't want to set the door lock to 0 because that's an integer. That doesn't really make any sense for what we want to do. We want to set it to true or to false. And we want to set the door locked to true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to this little blue tab right here. And this is a really cool area right here. There's a lot of interesting pieces of code in here. And if you scroll down, you have your conditionals here. And you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's these spiky kind of blocks here. And there's your true and false, I just call them Booleans, so students can get used to that language. So you'll notice when I put it in, it like taps it, or it like hooks into it. So I set door lock to true at the very start of my code. Now that really doesn't do anything yet. All it does is setting this door locked variable and putting the true Boolean inside of it. But it's a good, the students probably will start to understand, okay, I need to change something with this Boolean. So once they have the door set locked to true, you come back over here and we get into another really powerful block of code. And it's very similar to this block of code you used right here, except it's for tile maps. And this is probably the block of code that your students will want to use the most. So I click on the seam button, which is our tree, come all the way down here, and it says on sprite of kind player overlaps checkerboard at location. So it's this chunk of code. What this chunk of code does is basically anything that your player overlaps on your tile map, you can do something. So you want to create a trap that will make the students fall into something. If you want something to activate to create some music, and this does have music in it under the music tab right there. I don't think I'll get into that because that's pretty self-explanatory. But I'm going to click on here. And so when I say sprite of client player overlaps the door. So when I touch the door at the door's location, I want something to happen. Now, what you want to happen, and I explain this very carefully to the students, is you want, if the door is set to true, which it is over here, so the door lock is set to true, we want to push the player back away from the door and tell them you need to find the key. Now in code, there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I found for Makecode, this little piece of code that I'm going to show you here is the most efficient way, and it makes a lot of sense once you complete it out. So we're going to come down to our logic tab, which is this blue one right here, and we're going to come up. You can see if true then. This is our conditionals, and I'm just going to grab the top one out. I'm going to place it in, and I basically want to say if door locked equals true. Now to do that, we need to come back into logic, which is the blue one right here, and you can see there's you have our conditional blocks on the top, and then below that you have what are called your comparison blocks. So compare something to something else. So I'm just going to drag that one out. I'm going to place it in. And I'm going to say if door locked equals true. So if you recall our door locked variable, I'm going to come back here, come down to this variables part right here. And there's my door locked right there. So I'm going to drag that out, put it into 0. So if door locked equals, and then I'm going to click on here, come all the way down to the bottom and put true. Now you'll notice, and I talk to students about this, I leave this open so it says 0, and basically there's a conflict here, right? If door locked equals 0, well, that's the computer, the coding doesn't understand that because you set door locked to a Boolean, and this says it's 0, so it's got this little error message, and this is kind of the very first error message that students see in their code. This is the first bug that they'll see. And I often stop and talk to them a bit about this because really coding is all about coming across bugs and being able to solve them and figure out what the problem is, because you're never going to write code or use blocks in code and have it work perfectly. It's just not how it works. So once I pop that true block in magically, hopefully magically, it corrects itself. So if door locked equals true, I am going to choose a brand new block that we haven't used before. So I'm going to click on sprites up here. I'm going to come down a little bit this way. And there's this thing called change my sprite x by 0. It's under the physics tab right here. So change my sprite x by 0. So I'm going to pull that out. And what I'm going to do is I talk about this is your x-axis right here. And we go into our tile map. And when we touch the door, we want to bump them back down the x-axis. We want to push the character back like they're getting bounced. And of course, the x-axis runs from 0 to whatever, I don't know, 100 or something like that. So let's bump them back this way, minus down the x-axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 0, and I'm going to put minus 16. Okay, so if the door lock equals true, when they touch the door, it's going to bump them back down the x-axis minus 16, and we're going to give them a little hint as to what they need to do. So I'm going to come down. I'm going to use a splash for this one. A splash shoots it across the entire screen. So I'm going to go, let's see, you need the key. Nice and basic. Okay, so let's come down here. Let's click A, and I'll say playtest. Always playtest. Come down here. Oh, I'm having a little trouble getting through the block here. There we go. And come over the door. Bang. You need the key. I'll try again. And it will keep doing that. It won't stop. So my character just kind of waiting, looks a little frustrated. She looks more sleepy than frustrated, actually. So now, if you, and I used to do this, if you do not put this kind of logic in here, and you just say when you overlap the door, and you don't bump them back, they're going to get stuck on this part right here, and it's going to stick to it. So this little x minus 16, little piece of code right here, is a very handy way to keep it so they don't get frustrated. Okay, so we've got that set up. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create our next piece of our code that basically says if they get the key and they unlock the door, that's going to kind of like open up the rest of the level for them. So to do that, it's very similar to this code. So we're going to click on scene. We're going to come all the way down here, and we're going to grab the exact same block we grabbed before, which is this one under tile maps. Pull that out. Okay, and we're going to say when I overlap the door. Okay, now here is another issue that you'll notice. When your code turns this color, it means there's a duplicate of that code somewhere, and you can't have two types of code exactly the same. It just doesn't understand it. So down here, I'm going to say on the sprite of kind food. So the food, if you remember, we come back over here, is the key. So when I say on sprite of kind food overlaps the door, not the player, when the food overlaps the door, I'm going to switch this variable right here to false. So that means that this block of code will not run anymore. It'll switch it, and this block of code just doesn't exist. It's the exact opposite of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my variable. I'm going to set door locked, pull that out, and I'm going to go back into my logic tab, which is right here, come down a little ways, and I'm going to grab that false. So I'm going to set door lock to false, which negates this chunk of code, and I'm going to destroy the key. So that's going to make it look like the key disappears in my hands. So let's go to sprites. Let's come down a little bit this way. And there's a little block right here that destroys sprites. This is a great way. Sorry, I'll go back there again so you can do that a little more slowly. It's right under effects right here. And the cool thing about Makecode is it has little effects built in. So there's this plus sign, and you can have it'll run a little effect. Like let's do a star field effect for like a second, 1 second. So to run back over this code one more time, my door lock starts as true. I come over to the door and I overlap it. And if it is true, then it bumps me back. However, if I go over and pick up that key and bring the key back to the door, once that key of type food, which is this key right here, touches that door, it flips my Boolean from true to false, and which means this code doesn't run anymore. This code is now negated, and then my key disappears. So let's give that a go to see if it actually works. So let's click here, click A. Let's come down. I always tell the students to play test your code. So bounce, yep, not working. And there's no way all the students in your class are going to run this code perfectly the first time. And I'm having a lot of trouble getting through the doors. My key's getting away from me today. Oh, okay, the key's going to touch the door way ahead of me. My key keeps getting away from my character. No, I'm gonna have to restart this one. I totally messed this one up. I'm gonna try again. Let's try one more time. I'm gonna have to create my dungeon a little more open. I think my dungeon's a little too tight. That's the problem I'm having. There we go. Okay, so there's my key. I'm gonna have to open that up. When I touch the door, it says you need the key. Okay, and then I touch that. Oh, I think I know what the problem is here. I've got a bug in my code. That's pretty good. So right here, so it says set door lock to false. Okay, so actually let's go back over this way right here. So on sprite of kind food overlaps at location, I set door lock to false. I destroy my sprite. So I'm not destroying the key, I'm destroying my character. So that's a bit of a problem. So you can see I didn't really follow my own advice there with my code. So that's always a good thing. That happens a lot when you're building code out, that you'll make a mistake in the middle of it, and you got to kind of go back through your code and figure out what you're doing wrong. Now let's make this a little less frustrating for me. I'm definitely going to open up this part of my level here a bit and not make it so hard to get through. So I'm just going to jump down. You have to do things like this sometimes to make your game a little more reasonable. I always tell the students, don't build your game too hard and don't build it too easy. And mine right now is probably a little too hard. So there we go. Click done. Let's try this one more time. So come down. Still having trouble getting through my basic spot right here. There we go. And I've got my key. And then when my key overlaps my door, bang. Okay, my key disappears. Now it looks like my key kind of goes away, but it just goes off the screen. Now, the problem we have here is once my key disappears, my door just kind of stays there. My door doesn't disappear. So what we need to do is we need to have the door disappear as well as the key. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up to the top and we're just going to type in set block and just hit enter on that. And let's set block. Let's see, set at. Let's see what we got. Ah, there it is. So it's this one right here. So it says set checkerboard at tile map column and row. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this out and put it down here. And we're going to set out a regular block like that. And we're going to set it at the location of this door. So what that's going to do, it's going to make the key disappear and it's going to change it to maybe a block like this. I mean, you can change it to whatever you wanted. So let's just open that up. Let's come down again. And let's run that. I'm getting better at this. I think I'm actually controlling my character a little better now. There we go. So you can see my door opens up and I can now proceed into my next level. There's a lot of different ways to build out next levels. I generally don't build out levels like I'm going to show you here, but because our time is very short, what you could do here is, depending on how much time in your class, you can either create a new level over here. All you'd need to do is take your 1632, and you could have a whole other room here. And a great way to save yourself time is to click on this marquee tool and kind of highlight your one part of your level, hit Control-C and Control-V, and you can see you can duplicate. You can bring a whole chunk of your level over. So that's just copying your level. And up here, you have rotation blocks. So you can rotate it around, move it. So you could do it that way. And what I would do here, right on this door, if I go to this door right now, I'll be able to walk right through it. So what I'm going to do is you put a block on the other side of the door right here, and that way they could not enter this level right here. So they walk up to the door, they can't get by. Don't put the block on the door because they have to walk over the door with the key. So you put the block on just on the other side. Now you'll notice when I put the block there, over here, watch right here, this spot right here, there is two numbers. The numbers are 16 and 14. So that is the tile map X and Y location of that tile where my cursor is. So hold on, what was it again? 16 and 14. So let's click done. And what we're going to do is under our scene right here, we're going to come down. And right here, you can see it's under tile map operations. We have set wall off at a certain location. So bring that out, put it down here, and I'm going to turn the wall off at 16. I think it was 1614. I better double check that. 1614, yes. So what that'll do is it'll turn that wall off at that location and allow my character to walk through it. So that's in the videos I have online that I've given to you to use. I don't do it this way, but it's one way of moving to the next level. And okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to make your game a little bit harder. So currently your game really has no point other than to open that door. So we want to look at a kind of, well, what is a game over scenario for what you're doing? So what would actually destroy the character? So what the easiest way to do that is the first thing we talk about with the students is I click on my tile map, and this room right here I turn into kind of like a lava room, because lava is just one of those standard things that no one can touch, and it works pretty well. So I'm just gonna click on dungeon, and I'm gonna go all the way down to where it says miscellaneous right here. So under miscellaneous, I'm gonna go to the right, and you can see you actually have two lava tiles. So you can click on the lava tile, and up on the top up here, you have 3 different size boxes. I'm going to choose the largest box, and I'm just going to fill that room with lava like that. Nice and easy. Although, you know what? I put my lava a little bit too large. So I'm going to just go like that, and like that. There we go. Okay. So once I've got that, what I want to happen here is I'm going to create a little trap for the character, for the player. It's when you start getting into traps, it's kind of a fun way for students to kind of practice, building out little traps in their dungeon and maybe having their story have it. So you could have a character right here that they bump into and says, you need to get the secret sword up here, but beware of what direction you go on the lava tiles or something like that. You can put little NPCs or non-player characters in, and you can chat with them. So what we'll do here is I'm going to jump back into my gallery. I'm going to go to dungeon, and I'm just going to bump over a tiny bit, and I'm just going to place down some really simple little tiles this way. I'm going to make this nice and straightforward, and like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a little chest like this, and I'm going to put the chest in the center right there. So that when the character comes into this area, they can walk through, and they can walk up this way to get to the chest, or they can walk up this way and get to the chest. What we're going to do is we're going to have it so when they walk over a specific tile, it drops the character into the lava, and well, game over. You can't go that way. So I'll show you really quickly. The game over code is really quite easy to build out. So we're going to come over here, and I'm just going to collapse all my blocks and bring them down. And I'm just going to use this on sprite of kind overlap. So click on scene, come all the way down. On sprite of kind player overlaps checkerboard. So this one right here. On sprite of kind player overlaps the lava. Now, sometimes what you'll get is because there are 2 different types of lava, the students will choose the wrong type and the code won't work. So just make sure it's exactly the same tile as they have on their level. Game over is really simple. It's just this purple block, and it's this game over lose right here. So I put that in, game over lose, and game over lose, you can do it with, there's a lot of different blocks, but lava probably appropriately is melt. And you can test this. If I go back to my start right here, and I'm going to click on my level, and I'm just going to open this. I'm going to put a lava block right here, actually, no, I won't. I'm going to open up this wall right here. So I'm going to click this wall. I'm going to delete it so my character can walk through. So let's play test this to make sure our lava actually does. Oh, you know what? Okay, you can probably see why this is happening, and I'll come back into my level. I have a start block here and a start block here, so I certainly have to get rid of that one. So my character only starts here. Good to troubleshoot on the fly. So let's try that again. Hopefully this time around it will work. There we go. All right, so let's get through this part. And you can see I'm just going. And there goes my character. Now, I don't know if you heard that sound because I have my headphones on, but it plays like a little dun 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 sound over, and then you start again. So even if you get this far with your students to these, these blocks of code that I have here, you've already got kind of a basic layout for a game ready to go. So while we are in here, what we'll do is we'll have it so a certain tile that we walk over disappears. So to do that, we're going to use another one of these overlap blocks. Like I said before, these overlap blocks are kind of your bread and butter for students creating interactive components for their game. So I'm just going to right click it, I'm going to duplicate it. So if you recall, if you see this gray, it means that the blocks are exactly the same, so that's not going to work for us. So I am going to come back into my tile map here. I am going to create a cracked tile. So I'm going to come over, one here and one here, and I'm going to create, I'm just going to do like this kind of mossy looking tile. I'm going to place it right there. I'm going to click done. And I'm going to say on sprite of kind player overlaps that mossy tile. So there's that mossy tile. When they overlap that mossy tile at that location, I'm going to set a lava block at that location. So if you recall, over in our, which one was it? It was this little block right here. We set a block at our door location. It's this block right here. If we already have code inside of our editor, it's good to just reuse it because it saves you the time of going and grabbing it over here. So on sprite of kind player overlaps mossy block at location set, and I'm going to set the lava at that location. So I grab this location and I put it in here. I just grab this red location. That ensures that it's the same location, which will create some ghost code, which you trash. Now, to do this correctly, I always say don't just set it at this block, set it at the block behind it as well. That way the character can actually see that they're falling into something. So I'm going to come over a little bit over to here. I'm going to click on here. I'm going to hover over the block behind, which is this block right here. And if I look on the bottom, if I look way down here, you'll see that is 6, 3. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to duplicate this code again. And I'm going to set a lava block and I'm going to pull that location out. I'm going to trash it. I think it was 6, 3. Pretty sure it was. My memory serves me correctly. Okay, so that's going to set a block down at both of them. We'll see how this works. So click play, come over here, come up through. I'm making a decision of which way to go. Oh, you know what? One important thing too is if you even touch this lava, your character is going to die. So it's important that you use the block out and run your block out around the corners of your lava so they can't fall into it. Otherwise, it's going to be super frustrating for them. That way they can't fall into the lava. You can, I mean, you don't have to do that, but honestly, I don't be playing a game too long that I can't, move around in. So let's do that, try that again. See, now I can't fall into the lava unless I go here, right? Now this game over covers it up, but you can open up that lava. It covers it up right here, but that lava is now open and they kind of fall into it. That is as far as I think I'm going to go with this. This code right here, the next component of this code inside the tutorial videos is the students creating and I'll come back over here, is the students creating a projectile up here. So I have a snowball that my character throws. So I put the snowball up here. Once they grab the snowball, they can throw the snowball around the level. And then in this level, in the tutorials, we talk about building out enemies that kind of wander around with a little bit of artificial intelligence. We start really simple with just them walking back and forth, and then we get them to follow you. So they follow you around, and we talk about things like health, like hearts in the corner. We talk about when the projectile hits the enemy, what happens to them? Do they freeze? Does the character disappear? And then we start to talk about large groups of enemies coming at you, and yeah, things like that. So the tutorials walk you through will basically show you how your students how to build an entire game by themselves. So as a teacher, if you do want to use this, I would suggest you go through it by yourself first and try it out. If you have, if you have any issues with it, it's a great way to troubleshoot yourself and see what your students are going to experience in the classroom. So I'm just going to jump back into the chat really quick here. Sorry. Yeah, grade threes. Please unmute your mics and chat if you like. Like I said, we don't have many people in here, so you're more than welcome to talk. I've done it with grade threes, and it's awesome. We do a little bit of a story thing first. We talk about the key in the door and what does your key look like and what does that door look like and where does that door go. And actually, after they build the game, they can do writing after it, so they can talk about what happens next in the game. So we do the kind of writing component first, we do the game, and then we do a writing component after. So it's kind of a nice combination of the two. In grade threes, they love it. I mean, oh, the whole classes just love doing stuff like this, especially the little ones in primary. Sorry, oh, I don't understand why that wall, or I don't understand that wall on the other side of the door. Why is that there? The wall blocks you from going into the next level. So if the character goes to that door and they try and walk through it, they can't. The wall stops them from going into the next level. So they need to get the key to open the door, which allows the wall to, which removes the wall and allows them to walk through that door. That's why that wall is there, to stop them from moving to the next level. I hope that answers your question.
And then once the key, you would have to write code to make sure that once the key is inserted in the door, then that wall would disappear.
Yeah, so I did do that code. Let me jump back real quick here. The code, it's right here. It turns the wall off. Set wall off at the location in the row. So that turns the wall off at that exact location and row. Do you see where I'm hovering over here?
Yep, I do.
16, 14. So that 16 and 14, that will turn that wall off, and that wall will disappear at that exact location.
Once the key is inserted.
Correct. Yes.
Cool.
Once the tree is inserted, and it's the Boolean turns to false, and that allows you to walk through the door. Yeah. So it's all that kind of logic stuff is great for students to practice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No worries. Any other questions from anyone or comments or anything like that? Please feel free to turn off your mic and chat if you want. Yeah. That's pretty much it for me. And I think. Like I said, these are the little units right here, and let me turn that on for you. Should start up there. You can see the lights light up on the bottom. And the game, it's probably really hard to see. Sorry, I've got a new computer. You can see the game is right here, and then I have my controller, and my character, moves around with my A and B buttons and so forth. So this is the little unit that we give once they build up the games, the students take these and actually play it on these little Pi gamers. So it's a lot of fun. Another kind of element we add on to the process. We do a lot of 3D printing in my district too. So we get the students to create little cases for the games, and then you kind of customize those in the different classes. We're a tiny district, we're very small. So we're only like 2 high schools and 7 elementary. So I have a chance to get to all the schools and try this stuff with them. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much,
Very
Nathan.
Fun.
It was
my
really
pleasure.
great. Thank you for being here with us today.
No
if anyone has any questions, you can always email Edith Lando, and I can get your questions to Nathan. And all the stuff will be on the website by the end of the week. So please feel free to take a look. And yeah, questions are always welcome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.